a very important topic, which is question analysis. So we need to understand the problem. Students very often mess up their score for two main reasons before the writing process starts. One is question analysis, and the other is outlining. When a student fails to do a proper question analysis and fails to do a fundamental outline before starting the writing process, that often results in low scores on the rubric in terms of task development and coherence. Doing a proper analysis is critical to scoring well. So that's what I'm going to cover in this particular lecture. So when it comes to question analysis, in this lecture section, we're going to talk about reasons why students get poor essay scores. What does it mean when a person tells you to read a question carefully? The question analysis process, and then giving you an opportunity to practice question analysis. So some reasons why students get really low scores. Number one, failing to take the time to read the question, or in other words, failing to take time to analyze the question, to do a proper analysis of the question. Number two, your writing focus is about the general topic of the question and not the limiting language. Writing about the wrong question type. And number four, not recognizing the question restriction or not recognizing the limiting language of an essay question. Every essay question has limiting language, has restricting language. They're never going to tell you, write an essay about the internet, right? It will be some specific aspect of the internet, social media, giving information online, privacy, criminality, some specific aspect of the internet, not the general topic of the internet. So when you look at a question, you need to understand the question restriction. So let's talk about just the concept of question analysis. When you write an essay, when you answer a question, you must demonstrate understanding. Understanding is what relates to task development and task achievement. So to do that, you need to correctly identify the focus of the question. You must deal with that focus consistently with throughout the entire essay that you're writing. You must answer that question. Examiners complain all the time that students don't answer the question. They only answer parts of it, or they talk about it in a very general way. So question analysis is critical. So let's talk about the process. And on the exam, you would mentally do this question analysis process. However, you can also write it down on your note paper or whatever. I like to write it down because having it in front of me allows for me to stay focused and stay inside the box of the question. So a basic question analysis involves three parts. Number one, what is the general essay topic, the macro topic? Number two, what is the restrictive limiting keyword, or what are the restrictive limiting keywords in a question? That's the micro topic. Like I talked about before, the internet might be the macro topic. Giving or providing personal information online could be the micro topic, the limiting language. And lastly, part three, a basic question analysis involves recognizing the instruction or direction words. Agree or disagree. Discuss both sides. Advantages or disadvantages. Problem or solution. Now, for this class, we're going to talk about two other aspects of question analysis, and that involves the question parts, because often on the exam, students mess up how many parts are to a question. A question can have one part, two parts, three parts, and when you don't write about all parts of the question, that really messes up your score. Also, we're going to discuss how students mess up or confuse answering a question. I think it's really important for you to look at and for us to examine what are different ways that students mess up the question so that you don't make those same mistakes. So here's an example of two questions we have here. Some people think that being creative during your time off is helpful. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of this and give your opinion. Right? Also, we're looking at how do students mess up answering this question. The second question is, some people believe that to reduce industrial pollution, a tax should be imposed on companies, while others believe that different measures should be taken to solve the problem. Discuss both sides and give your opinion. So this is what a proper analysis would look like. For the first question, the general essay topic is free time. What do you do during free time? The restriction, being creative. The instruction or direction words are advantage, disadvantage, opinion. This has three parts. For our second question, the general topic is pollution. That's the macro topic. Now we have our restricting language about pollution. We're talking about reduction, industrial, pollution, tax, companies, and other solutions, other measures. Our instruction or direction words, discuss both and opinion. Again, three parts. Finally, how do students mess up answering the question? For our first one way is by discussing something other than being creative during free time. You are limited to only talking about the advantages, disadvantages, and your opinion about being creative during your free time. If you talk about any other thing, any other aspect other than being creative, you are wrong. For our second one way that students mess up is by not discussing both sides in a balanced way. In addition, and I've seen this many times before, talking about pollution outside of an industrial pollution context. The question is clearly talking about reducing industrial pollution. If you talk about any other type of pollution that's not industrial, you have messed up the question. And finally, failing to clearly expand an opinion. Too many times I see students writing one sentence opinions, two sentence opinions. Give a fully explained opinion if you want to score well. Okay, so coming up next, so let's get started. Our first question in red, some people think that government should increase the cost of fuel for cars and other vehicles to solve environmental problems. Do you agree or disagree? Our second question, we can access information from the internet easily. Some people say that libraries are no longer necessary. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So I want you to pause the lecture, get out a timer, set that timer for maybe a minute, and try to answer all parts of the analysis. So pause the lecture now before I go to the next screen and give you the results. Okay, so let's look at the analysis. For our first question in red, the general essay topic is about the environment. The restrictive or limiting words relates to government increasing fuel costs to solve the problem. Our direction words are agree or disagree, and we have one part. We only have one part because either you agree or disagree, not both. If you agree, your entire essay is about why you agree. If you disagree, your entire essay is about why you disagree. For our second question, the general essay topic, libraries, the restrictive language is that it's not necessary due to the internet. It's not necessary, no longer necessary. Our direction words are to what extent, agree or disagree. This can have one to two parts because you may mainly agree, but there may be some aspect that you disagree with. So our first question is different than the second question because it uses the language to what extent. So how do students mess up these questions? For the first one in red, the main way students mess up the question is by discussing a solution other than increasing the cost of fuel for cars. You are limited, you are restricted to only talking about that aspect, only writing about that aspect. For our second part, our second question, how do students mess it up? The main way is by having a separate discussion about how we can access the internet more easily. Why is it important to access the internet more easily? What we can find by accessing the internet more easily. That's not what the question is about. The question is about, are libraries necessary still? That's what the question is about. Okay, let's move on to class practice 2. Here are our two questions. On the left in red, many people today put personal information online for the needs of daily life, shopping, banking, social life. Is this a positive or negative development? Question 2. Nowadays, many people choose to be self-employed rather than work for a company or organization. Why might this be the case? What could be the disadvantages of being self-employed? All right, go ahead, stop the lecture, pause for a minute or minute and 30 seconds, and do your question analysis. Pause the lecture. All right, so for our first question in red, the general topic is online internet. Our restrictive language, sharing personal information for daily life. Direction words, positive or negative, one part. Second question. The general essay topic is the work world or employment. The restrictive language is we're only talking about self-employment, choosing self-employment. Our direction words are why is it happening and what are the disadvantages? There are two parts here, two parts. The first one is one part. If it's positive, you only write about it being positive. If it's negative, you only write about it being negative. Now, how do students mess up these questions? The first one in red, the main way is by failing to understand that you must make a clear choice, right? Not positive and negative, make a choice. Another way is by talking about information not related to personal life or daily needs. For our second question, students lower their scores by having some discussion or writing about working for companies or working for organizations or why people work for organizations and companies. That's not the focus of the question. The focus is on the growth of self-employment. Also, you have to make sure that you answer both parts, not just answer why, but also talking about the disadvantages. One other way that I don't have written here in terms of really messing up that second question would be having a discussion about advantages. Did they ask you about advantages? No. So you would not write about advantages at all. All right, let's go to class analysis practice 3. Here are our two. Nowadays, more and more tasks are happening. Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Question 2. Many doctors recommend that older people exercise regularly, but most older people do not follow any exercise routine. Why do you think this is happening? How can these people be encouraged to exercise regularly? So, everyone, pause the lecture, take a minute to a minute 30 seconds, and do your full question analysis. Okay, let's take a look. For the first one, the general essay topic is about robots. The limiting language, home, and work task. That's all we're talking about in terms of robots. Instruction words, why is it happening? And also talking about advantages outweighing disadvantages. Our second one is about the general topic could be about the elderly. You also could have maybe the general essay topic being about physical exercise. That would be a way of looking at it also. However, whether you look at the general essay topic being about the elderly or the general essay topic being about physical exercise, the restricting limiting language does not change. The restrictive limiting language, which is so important because that's what you're writing about, is that older people don't follow a regular exercise routine. Our instruction words are why and how to encourage it. This has two parts. Our first question has two parts. So how do students mess up this question? Students mainly louse up the question by only discussing robots in home or only writing about robots in work. There are two parts here. You have to talk about them at home and also at work. Of course, you're going to get a bad score if you only address part of the question. Sometimes students mess up by not understanding what the word task means. Another way that they mess up this question is not talking about how advantages outweigh disadvantages or if the advantages outweigh. Keyword is outweigh. You can't just say, these are some of the advantages, these are some of the disadvantages, and not have a discussion about whether or not the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. For our second question, if you're writing about why doctors recommend the elderly exercise, you're wrong. If you talk about the benefits of exercise for the elderly, you're wrong. You're talking about why they don't follow a routine and how can you motivate them to follow a routine. That is the limitation of the question. You cannot go outside of that box. Okay, question analysis, class practice 4. Let's get into it. We have 3 questions in front of us. Question 1 in red, some people believe that in the next 100 years, most people will have a better life, while others disagree. What is your opinion? Question 2, some people say that rich people are the most successful in society. Others think that those who contribute to society, like scientists and teachers, are more successful. Discuss both sides and give your opinion. Question 3 in white, nowadays, many people prefer to seek medical advice on the internet instead of seeking a qualified doctor. What are the reasons for it? Is it a positive or negative development? Okay, so pause the lecture, take a couple of minutes, and do a full analysis for each question. Okay, so for our first question in red, the general topic is the future. Our restrictive language, are the next 100 years better for personal life? This is an opinion question. There's only one part. Body 1 is your opinion. Body 2 is your opinion. They're not separate parts here. Our second question, the general topic is about success and people. The restrictive language, rich people, scientists, teachers. Our direction words, both sides, and give an opinion. 3 parts here. Our third question, general essay topic is medicine. The restrictive language, internet advice over qualified doctors. Choosing. Our direction words, what are the reasons? Is it positive or negative? There are 2 question parts here. Now, how do students mess up or bobble this question? For the first one, the only real way you can bobble this question is by talking about maybe modern life and people liking modern life, or talking about the past, or comparing the future and the past. Your job is to put yourself in the future. Put yourself in the future and talking about whether or not people are going to have a better life. Whether or not they're going to have a better life. Also, a student can really mess up this first question in red by not using future tense verbs, not using future tense language. That's a great way, or really a poor way that a student will mess up the question. For our second one, of course, not having a balanced discussion, first explaining about rich people, then explaining about success for teachers and scientists, and then having a clear opinion. Having clear paragraphing is so important to scoring well. For our third question, misunderstanding what it refers to. Very often students misunderstand reference pronouns. In addition, this question is not about why you should seek the advice of a qualified doctor or why qualified doctors are better. That's not what it's about. You must only talk about why people are seeking advice on the internet instead of a qualified doctor. All right, question analysis practice 5. Let's keep going, keep working at it, keep progressing.